Nice ink, Brooks. You lose a bet or something? Laughter erupted around the motor pool. Lena stayed quiet, tightening a bolt. Then came another voice. Brooks, where the hell did you get that tattoo? The colonel stepped forward, eyes fixed on her arm. Then he took off his jacket. Same tattoo, same piercing eagle eyes inked into his shoulder. Every sound vanished. Even the engines stopped humming. No one understood what they were looking at, but they all felt it. What does it mean? Who is Lena Rourke? You're about to find out. You're watching Veteran Biker. Drop a 1 if you're new, 2 if you've been here before. Don't forget to like and subscribe for stories that were never meant to surface. The humid air of Fort Daxton's motor pool, thick with the pervasive scent of diesel fuel, hydraulic oil, and the sharp metallic tang of rust, was Lena Rourke's world. It was a familiar, almost comforting embrace, a constant presence that had defined her existence for the better part of 5 years. Each resonant clang of a wrench connecting with stubborn metal, each high-pitched whine of a pneumatic tool, the deep, guttural roar of an engine sputtering to life, these were the individual notes in the complex symphony of her days. Lena, a mechanic by official designation, was more than just a cog in the vast military machine. She was an almost invisible, yet utterly indispensable fixture. Her cover was meticulously crafted, honed over years of diligent practice. Quiet, unassuming, utterly dedicated to her work, she blended seamlessly into the background noise of the bass. She moved with an economy of motion that spoke volumes about her efficiency. Her hands, often stained black with grease and grime, possessed a startling precision, a silent testament to a different kind of training, one far removed from standard automotive diagnostics. She was the one the other mechanics called upon when a Humvee refused to yield its secrets, the one who could coax life back into the most stubborn of transport trucks, diagnose the most elusive of electrical faults with an almost intuitive grasp. She performed her duties without fanfare, without complaint, fading into the background once her task was complete. Yet today the familiar symphony of the motor pool was pierced by a discordant hum, a low, insidious buzz of snickers, whispers, and pointed glances that seemed to follow her like an unwelcome shadow. It had begun subtly, a raised eyebrow here, a hushed conversation abruptly dying as she approached, a nervous cough. Then came the phone screens, glinting like malicious shards of glass in the harsh fluorescent lights of the hangar, each one displaying the same image. It was her forearm, zoomed in, pixelated yet unmistakably her. Specifically, it was the faded, almost indiscernible outline of an eagle-eyes tattoo. The image was grainy, distorted, a poor quality capture, yet clear enough for instant recognition, and clear enough, it turned out, for cruel public ridicule. The accompanying captions, passed from phone to phone, screen to screen, were a litany of sarcastic jabs, each one a needle prick designed to draw blood. Eagle eyes, more like blurry pigeon, one read, beneath a crudely drawn circle around the faded ink. Another sneered, "Is that supposed to be tough? Looks like a kindergartner's doodle." A particularly biting one quipped, someone trying to be a badass on a budget. Next time, spring for a real artist, Rourke. The barracks, typically a crucible of rough camaraderie and good-natured ribbing, had, in a disturbingly swift transformation, become a theatre of casual cruelty, and Lena was the unwitting, unwilling star of the show. She knew precisely when this public spectacle had begun. It was 2 days prior, while she was deep in the throes of replacing a seized alternator on a notoriously finicky MRAP, a monstrous armored vehicle known for its mechanical quirks. The angle required her to contort her body, her arms stretched out at an awkward angle, inadvertently revealing the tattoo to an accidental selfie taken by Private Miller, a fresh-faced recruit. Miller, a well-meaning but utterly oblivious kid, had been enthusiastically documenting his first real wrench-turning experience for his social media followers. He'd tagged her in the post, a naive act of camaraderie, completely unaware of the sensitive nature of what he'd inadvertently exposed. The image, once public, once released into the digital ether, had been snatched, cropped and recirculated with astonishing speed by others with far less innocent intentions. It was a small, almost insignificant detail to anyone else, a mere piece of faded skin art, but to Lena it was a profound crack in a perfectly constructed facade, a dangerous fissure threatening to expose the meticulously buried life she had worked so hard to conceal for years. Every day since, the whispers had grown louder, the stares more direct, the digital mockery morphing into palpable tension within the motor pool. Today, the mockery reached its inescapable crescendo. Lena was hunched over the massive, perpetually recalcitrant engine of a transport truck, her head half buried in its greasy, metallic innards, when the voice cut through the cacophony of the motor pool like a rusty saw. It was loud, confident, and utterly devoid of self-awareness. Private Calhoun, a new recruit fresh out of basic training, embodied all the brashness and unearned confidence of youth. He was all swagger and bluster, his neatly gelled hair and perpetually smug smirk a testament to his inflated sense of self-importance. Calhoun was the archetypal soldier who mistook a loud mouth for leadership, bravado for bravery. He stood just a few feet away from Lena, surrounded by a small gaggle of his equally green, impressionable peers, their faces a mixture of nervous excitement and anticipation. He gestured subtly in Lena's direction, though not subtly enough to escape anyone's notice. "Hey, Rourke!" Calhoun's voice boomed, carrying effortlessly across the hangar's cavernous space, amplified by the high ceilings. "Heard you got yourself some ink there, some kind of Special Forces wannabe symbol, huh? Eagle eyes? Trying to look tough for the supply run?" A ripple of nervous chuckles spread through Calhoun's small, captive audience. They looked from Lena, her back still to them, to Calhoun, then back again, their expressions a fluctuating mix of apprehension and amusement, unsure how this confrontation would play out. Lena, still bent double over the engine, didn't move a muscle. Her hands continued to work with a steady, almost rhythmic precision, her knuckles white as she applied force to a stubborn bolt, her movements smooth and economical. The lack of any immediate reaction from her, however, only seemed to embolden Calhoun, who mistook her silence for either fear or submission. "Come on, Rourke, don't be shy," he pressed, taking a bold step closer, his voice dripping with mock concern. "Show us the mighty bird. Is it supposed to make the wrenches fly faster? Or maybe it just helps you see those greasy parts better, huh? Like some kind of mechanics superpower?" More laughter, louder this time, erupted from his small circle. A few of the older, more experienced mechanics glanced over, their expressions a complex blend of discomfort, quiet disapproval, and a certain detached fascination. They knew Lena Rourke was different. They'd seen her handle pressure, witnessed her unwavering calm under the most frustrating and chaotic breakdowns. But they'd never seen her targeted quite like this, exposed and ridiculed in such a public, personal manner. Most expected a reaction, an outburst, a defensive retort. Lena finally straightened up, her movements fluid and unhurried, her back unbending, her eyes, the color of storm clouds gathering on a distant horizon, met Calhoun's. There was no anger there, no defensiveness, not even the slightest flicker of annoyance in their depths. Just a deep, almost unsettling calm. It was the kind of calm that suggested not indifference but a profound, almost ancient stillness within, a quiet core that remained untouched by the superficial turbulence around her. Her face, smudged with dark streaks of grease and oil, remained utterly impassive, a mask of unreadable composure. Her silence was not empty. It was a shield, unyielding, impenetrable. Calhoun, momentarily thrown by her utter lack of reaction, faltered slightly. His smug smile wavered. He'd expected a blush, a stammer, perhaps a heated, defensive retort, or even a tearful retreat. He'd expected the usual theatrical performance of humiliation. Instead, he got nothing. This quiet, unassuming mechanic, the object of his facile taunts, was not playing by his preconceived rules. She hadn't even given him the satisfaction of acknowledgement. "What? Cat got your tongue, Rourke?" Calhoun tried to regain his footing, his bravado wavering, a hint of desperation creeping into his voice. Just asking, just curious about the Elite Inc. He emphasized the word elite with a sneer, drawing out the syllables, trying to inject more bite into his fading act. The attempt felt hollow, even to his own ears. Lena simply turned her back to him, her movements fluid and efficient, a silent, absolute dismissal. She picked up a diagnostic tool, her fingers moving over its buttons with practiced ease, her focus returning entirely to the truck's engine. It was a dismissal more potent than any shouted insult, a quiet declaration that Calhoun's words were beneath her notice, almost beneath her contempt. She acted as if he were an irritating fly, buzzing around her ear, easily ignored, quickly forgotten. She had a job to do. But not everyone was ignoring it. Across the motor pool, near the parts inventory shelves, Sergeant Granger stood, his formidable arms crossed over his equally formidable chest. Granger was a career NCO, gruff and no-nonsense, with eyes that missed absolutely nothing. He had seen countless recruits like Calhoun come and go, all bluster and very little substance, their short-lived bravado quickly humbled by the realities of military life. He had also watched Lena Rourke for years, a quiet, almost spectral presence. He'd seen her quiet efficiency, her unwavering focus, the almost supernatural calm she possessed, even when the chaos around her threatened to overwhelm others. He'd always felt there was something more to Lena, something that didn't quite fit the mold of a humble motor pool mechanic, something that her civilian cover seemed to intentionally obscure. Granger's gaze lingered on Lena, a flicker of professional assessment in his eyes before shifting to Calhoun, a cold, hard glint settling in their depths. He didn't intervene, not yet. He simply observed. He watched as Lena continued her work, her shoulders straight, her head held high, her focus unbroken. He watched as Calhoun, after a few more weak, pathetic attempts to provoke a reaction, eventually slunk away, his laughter dying in his throat, his small, fickle audience dispersing, their attention already moving on. The public humiliation he had so eagerly sought to inflict on Lena had, in a subtle, almost poetic twist, boomeranged back onto himself. Granger had witnessed Lena in high-pressure situations before, a hydraulic line bursting inches from her face, spraying corrosive fluid, an engine backfiring with a deafening concussion. Like Roar, a massive vehicle unexpectedly lurching forward during routine maintenance, threatening to crush anything in its path. In every single instance, Lena had reacted with an almost preternatural calm, her movements precise, her eyes sharp, her decision-making instantaneous and flawless. Others might flinch, shout, or even panic, their training momentarily overridden by instinct. Lena simply acted, her body and mind moving as one, with an efficiency that bordered on the extraordinary. This incident with Calhoun, however trivial it might seem on the surface, reinforced Granger's long-held suspicion, solidifying it into an undeniable conviction. It wasn't just ordinary calmness, It was a deeper, ingrained control, a quiet steel forged under pressures he couldn't fathom, pressures that certainly weren't part of standard mechanic training. He knew that Faded Tattoo wasn't some random, poorly chosen piece of artwork picked from a flash sheet, and he knew with absolute certainty that Lena Rourke wasn't just a mechanic. He didn't know what she was, what secrets she carried beneath that unassuming exterior, but he knew for certain she was more. He silently took note, the gears in his experienced, analytical mind turning, storing away this observation alongside many others from the years he'd watched her. The motor pool slowly returned to its usual rhythm, the incident fading into the background noise. But for Sergeant Granger, a quiet suspicion had deepened into a firm, unshakable conviction. And for Lena Rourke, the incident, while momentarily unpleasant and exposing, had confirmed her greatest, most persistent fear. The cracks in her carefully constructed disguise were growing wider, threatening to reveal the dangerous, demanding life she had worked so hard to bury beneath layers of grease, oil, and quiet solitude. The faded eagle eyes were no longer just a memory, they were a beacon, and someone, somewhere, was starting to notice. The air in Fort Daxton's motor pool, usually a cacophony of banging tools and revving engines, hung heavy with an almost unnatural silence. It was the kind of hush that falls just before a storm, or perhaps in this case, the quiet before a truth long buried finally clawed its way to the surface. Today was the day of the base-wide inspection, an annual ritual that brought a heightened sense of tension and meticulous attention to detail. Every wrench was aligned, every floor tile gleamed, every vehicle sat in a pristine, parade-ready state. The general atmosphere was one of strained perfection, as various units tried to outshine each other under the scrutinizing gaze of the top brass. Colonel Silas Ward, the base commander, was a figure of quiet authority, his presence commanding attention without demanding it. He moved with a measured stride, his uniform impeccably pressed, his silver hair catching the light as he surveyed his domain. Ward was a man whose reputation preceded him, a decorated officer known for his piercing intellect and an almost uncanny ability to see beyond the surface. His eyes, the color of aged whiskey, missed nothing. He was accompanied by a retinue of junior officers and stern-faced NCOs, their clipboards ready, their expressions mirroring his own serious demeanor. They moved systematically through the motor pool, checking inventory, inspecting equipment, assessing the readiness of the unit. Lena Rourke, ever the professional, was doing her part, meticulously cleaning a chassis under the raised bay of a transport truck. The task was routine, mundane even, but she performed it with the same focused intensity she applied to every mechanical challenge. She was in a state of controlled awareness, her senses attuned to the subtle shifts in the room, the hushed murmurs, the approach of the inspection team. The incident with Private Calhoun still resonated faintly in the back of her mind, a low-frequency hum of unease. The public display of her tattoo had rattled her more than she cared to admit, a vulnerability exposed, a secret threatened. She worked quickly, efficiently, wanting nothing more than to finish her assigned task and blend back into the background, becoming once more the invisible mechanic. As Colonel Ward and his entourage drew closer, the silence around their procession intensified. Every mechanic in their path stiffened, standing at attention, offering crisp salutes. Ward acknowledged them with a nod, his gaze sweeping over the polished chrome and freshly painted surfaces. He was meticulous, his eyes missing no detail, no matter how small. As he approached Lena's bay, his footsteps, usually firm and purposeful, seemed to hesitate, almost imperceptibly. Lena, her back mostly to the approaching group, was just wiping down a particularly stubborn patch of oil from the underside of the truck. Her sleeve, rolled up to her elbow, revealed the entirety of her forearm. The eagle eyes tattoo, faded and worn from years of sun and hard work, was clearly visible. It was a simple design, two stylized eagle eyes, sharp and predatory, their gaze fixed on an unseen point, outlined in what was once vibrant black ink but now resembled a charcoal sketch. To the untrained eye, it might have looked like any other military-themed tattoo, perhaps a nod to a specific unit or a personal emblem, but to someone who knew, someone who truly saw, it was far more. Colonel Ward stopped cold. His stride, which had been so fluid and purposeful just moments before, ceased with an abruptness that rippled through his accompanying officers. The air thickened, charged with an unspoken tension. His eyes, usually scanning widely, narrowed, locking onto the faded ink on Lena's forearm. He didn't blink, he didn't speak. He simply stared, a gaze so intense it seemed to burn a hole through the very air. It wasn't a stare of curiosity or even recognition, but something far deeper, a profound, almost disbelieving shock, quickly masked by an unyielding control. The murmurs from his retinue died completely. The only sound was the distant hum of the bass, a world away from the suddenly frozen tableau in the motor pool. Lena, instinctively sensing the sudden shift in the atmosphere, slowly withdrew from under the truck. As she straightened up, wiping her hands on a rag, her eyes met Colonel Ward's. For a fleeting second, an eternity stretched between them, an unspoken question hanging in the air. Then, with a calculated stillness that was utterly mesmerizing, Colonel Ward began to move. His movements were deliberate, precise, each action weighted with immense significance. He reached for the buttons of his uniform jacket. The polished brass gleamed as his fingers undid the fasteners one by one. The crisp fabric of the jacket parted, revealing the dark green of his dress shirt beneath. The room, already silent, descended into an even deeper, more profound quiet. Every eye was on the colonel, every breath held, and then he peeled back the collar of his shirt, exposing the upper part of his left shoulder. There, etched onto his skin with far more clarity and vibrancy than Lena's, was an identical eagle eyes tattoo. The same sharp, predatory gaze, the same distinct stylization. It wasn't faded, it was a testament to recent touch-ups, a mark deliberately kept crisp and visible. It was unmistakable. A collective gasp, soft and involuntary, rippled through the onlookers. The junior officers, the NCOs, even the hardened mechanics who had seen it all stood in stunned silence. Their faces registered a mixture of awe, confusion, and dawning realization. This was not merely a shared symbol, it was a declaration. The sight of the colonel, the highly respected base commander, bearing the same mocked tattoo as the quiet mechanic, shattered every preconceived notion they held about Lena Rourke. Colonel Ward's gaze, now a steel-hard focus, moved from his tattoo back to Lena's. His eyes held a depth of understanding, a shared history that bypassed words. He then turned his head slightly, addressing the closest officer in a voice that was low, resonant, and utterly devoid of any emotion, yet carried an undeniable weight. "Sergeant Major," he began, his voice cutting through the silence like a scalpel, "cancel the remainder of the inspection for this section and ensure Private Calhoun is reassigned to latrine duty, effective immediately for the remainder of the month, under close supervision." The sergeant major, a burly man who rarely flinched, swallowed hard and snapped a rigid salute. The message was clear. Calhoun's casual cruelty had not gone unnoticed, nor would it be unpunished. Then Ward turned his full attention back to Lena, his voice dropping even lower, barely above a whisper, yet resonating with an authority that left no room for question. "Rourke," he said, his eyes still locked on hers, a flicker of something ancient passing between them. He gestured subtly with his chin towards a secluded, unmarked door at the far end of the motor pool, a door few people even noticed, let alone knew where it led. "My office. Now." And then, the words that confirmed everything, that pulled back the curtain on Lena's carefully constructed world. "She's not logistics." The statement hung in the air, echoing in the stunned minds of everyone present. "She's not logistics." It was a simple phrase, yet it carried monumental implications. Logistics was the official designation on Lena's personnel file, the quiet, unassuming cover she had maintained for years. The Colonel's words stripped that cover away in a single surgical strike. It implied a deeper, more significant role, a past far more complex than any mechanic's uniform could suggest. Sergeant Granger, who had been observing the entire interaction from a distance, felt a quiet vindication ripple through him. His long-held suspicions about Lena Rourke, those vague, unsubstantiated feelings that she was more than she appeared, were not only confirmed, but dramatically amplified. He watched as Lena, without a word, without a change in expression, simply nodded, a subtle, almost imperceptible tilt of her head. She pulled off her work gloves, folded them neatly, and placed them on the workbench. Her movements remained deliberate, unhurried, yet beneath the calm exterior, a silent current of recognition and readiness began to stir. The years of quiet, meticulous cover, the deliberate obscurity, were now irrevocably shattered. The ghost of her past had finally resurfaced, heralded not by a whisper, but by the stark, undeniable truth of shared ink. The motor pool, still wrapped in its stunned silence, had just witnessed the first tremor of a seismic shift, a moment that would forever alter the perception of Lena Rourke, and perhaps the very nature of Fort Daxton itself. The revelation of the Colonel's matching tattoo wasn't just an acknowledgement, it was a summons. And Lena, without even being asked, knew precisely what it meant. She was being called home. The sterile, almost oppressive quiet of Colonel Ward's private briefing room felt like a physical weight after the stunned silence of the motor pool. This wasn't the polished, impersonal office where he conducted his daily command duties. This was a deeper, more secure chamber, tucked away in a rarely accessed wing of the base, its walls soundproofed, its very atmosphere humming with a low-frequency hum of classified technology. The room was sparsely furnished. A large, dark wood table dominated the center, surrounded by a handful of high-backed chairs. A single large monitor on one wall displayed a generic login screen, waiting for its secrets to be unveiled. The air, recycled and cool, carried a faint metallic scent, a stark contrast to the grease and oil of Lena's usual domain. Lena Rourke entered first, her movements as fluid and unhurried as ever, yet beneath her composed exterior a whirlwind of dormant instincts began to stir. Her mind, usually focused on torque specifications and fuel lines, was now racing, processing the implications of the Colonel's silent summons. The matching tattoo, the unspoken understanding in his eyes, his chillingly precise words, "She's not logistics." It was a code, a trigger. A door, long locked and heavily guarded, was being forced open. Colonel Ward followed, his uniform jacket now back in place, concealing the twin eagle eyes. His face, usually a mask of calm authority, held a subtle tension, a hint of something deeper, something burdened. He closed the heavy, reinforced door behind them with a soft click that resonated with finality, sealing them off from the rest of the world. He didn't offer a seat, didn't engage in small talk. Time, it seemed, was of the essence. "Rourke," Ward began, his voice low, almost a rumble. "It's been a long time since I saw that mark in the field. I thought I was the last one carrying it, or at least the last one still openly serving." He walked to the monitor, his back to Lena for a moment, his fingers swiftly typing a complex series of commands. Files began to flash across the screen, encrypted data streams, scrolling too fast for the eye to discern. Lena remained silent, her gaze fixed on the back of his head. She knew the mark, the eagle-eyes tattoo, was more than just a symbol. It was an oath, a scar, a membership card to a club so exclusive, so deeply buried, that most in the military didn't even know it existed. Echo Vortex. The name, when it finally manifested in her mind, sent a shiver down her spine, not of fear, but of profound recognition. A ghost unit indeed, long thought defunct, its members scattered, its operations erased from public record. The screen stabilized, displaying a single stark image, a stylized eagle's head, its eyes narrowed, piercing, identical to the tattoos on their arms. Below it, in bold, stark lettering, read, Echo Vortex, Classified Operations Unit, decommissioned officially. Ward turned, his gaze sweeping over Lena, assessing her with the same keen intensity she'd seen him apply to a troubled engine. You were good, Rourke, damn good, one of the best, and you disappeared, just like the rest of us. The official story was unit dissolution, assets reassigned, records purged. A convenient fiction. He paused, his eyes narrowing slightly. But you know the truth, don't you? We weren't just decommissioned. We were swept under the rug, erased, for reasons that are only now beginning to resurface. Lena nodded slowly. I knew enough. After the incident, the orders came down. We were told to scatter, go deep, become someone else, fade away. Her voice was soft, devoid of emotion. A practiced neutrality that had become her default setting for years. I chose mechanic, always useful, always overlooked. And you did it well, Ward acknowledged, a flicker of something akin to respect in his eyes. Too well, perhaps. You were invisible. Until now. He gestured back to the screen. Echo Vortex was never truly defunct, just dormant, its existence denied, its members disavowed. A contingency. And now his voice grew grave. That contingency is stirring, because someone, Rourke, is tracking down every Echo Vortex survivor. Lena's jaw tightened imperceptibly. The tattoo, it was a signal, and now a target. Precisely, Ward confirmed, his voice chillingly calm. The eagle eyes was our silent recognition, our way of identifying each other if the worst happened, if we ever needed to re-engage. A fail-safe. Now it's a breadcrumb. Someone has access to classified intel that shouldn't exist. They know who we are, they know where we are, and they are coming. He walked over to the table, activating a small concealed projector. A holographic map shimmered to life above the tabletop, displaying a series of scattered red dots across the globe. Each dot pulsed faintly. These are the last known locations of verified Echo Vortex personnel. Most, like you, went deep underground. New identities, new lives. But over the past few months, these dots, they've been disappearing, not just going dark, vanishing, permanently. Lena's gaze swept across the map, her professional detachment momentarily giving way to a cold dread. These were her ghosts, her brothers and sisters in arms, the only ones who truly understood the horrors they had faced, the sacrifices they had made. To see them systematically hunted, picked off one by one, ignited a spark deep within her. What do you know about the nature of the threat? Lena asked, her voice sharper now, the mechanic's veneer finally beginning to crack. Ward turned from the map, his eyes locking onto hers, and this was where the new twist, the profound emotional highlight, entered the room. That's where it gets complicated and personal. Rourke, do you remember Operation Chimera, the OP in Kandahar, 08? The one that went south, the one that supposedly decommissioned us? Lena's eyes, usually so calm, flashed with a flicker of distant pain. I remember every detail, every face, every decision, every mistake. Chimera. The mission that haunted her dreams, the crucible that had forged her into the ghost she became, the mission where everything went wrong. "We were ambushed," Ward continued, his voice softer now, almost pained. "Intel was compromised. It was a massacre. I was hit, badly, cornered, thought it was the end." He paused, taking a slow, deep breath, his gaze unwavering. "My official report, the one they forced me to sign, said I was extracted by a flanking team, standard procedure. But that was a lie, a convenient lie to cover up the utter failure and the true nature of our assets." Ward stepped closer to Lena, his voice dropping to a near whisper, filled with a raw sincerity that cut through her practiced composure. "Rourke, it was you. You saved me. You were supposed to be covering the exfil point miles away, but you defied orders, tracked me down through that hell, and pulled me out. Against impossible odds, you extracted me, stabilized me, and got me to a safe house before any official channels even knew I was alive. You never filed a report, never took credit, never spoke a word of it." Lena flinched, a subtle tightening of her jaw. It was true. She had done it. A rogue decision, an act of sheer instinct and profound loyalty. She had seen him, exposed and bleeding, and the thought of leaving him, even under direct orders, had been unthinkable. She had seen him not as a commanding officer, but as a fellow soldier, a member of her true family, caught in a death trap. She had moved through enemy lines like a shadow, a phantom of vengeance and rescue, her training pushing her beyond all limits. It had been her personal hell, a secret she had carried, a burden that weighed heavily, yet she had never once considered revealing it. It was simply what she did. No praise, no recognition, just the grim satisfaction of a life saved, even as so many others were lost. "Why?" Ward pressed, his eyes searching hers, a vulnerability in his gaze she'd never seen before. "Why didn't you say anything? You risked everything, defied direct orders, and then just disappeared without a trace of credit." Lena's gaze was distant, looking through him, seeing the past. "Credit wasn't the point, Colonel. Getting you out was. The mission was a bust. Echo Vortex was compromised. Staying silent was the best way to ensure the incident remained contained, to ensure our real capabilities remained hidden. And I had my own ghosts to chase. I just wanted out, to forget." Her voice was laced with a weariness that years of grease and oil couldn't hide. Ward nodded slowly, a profound understanding dawning in his eyes, tinged with a deep respect. "And now those ghosts are coming for all of us. The fact that someone knows about our tattoos, that they're hunting down every last one of us, means they have a level of deep state access, a grasp of our history. That terrifies me. This isn't random. This is targeted. The tattoo wasn't just a signal to us, Rourke. It was a signal to them. And now it's a target. You are a target." The implications settled over Lena with a chilling clarity. Her quiet life, her carefully constructed anonymity, was a shattered illusion. The constant low-level paranoia she'd suppressed for years, the gnawing feeling that the past could never truly be buried, was now stark reality. The mockery in the motor pool, the zoomed-in photo, they weren't just random acts of petty cruelty. They were indicators, ripples of a much larger, more dangerous current. Someone had been watching her. Someone had known about the tattoo, about its significance, even if the soldiers around her hadn't. "Who?" Lena asked, the single word sharp, cutting through the heavy air. Who would want to wipe Echo Vortex off the map, officially and unofficially? Ward walked back to the monitor, bringing up a complex web of flowcharts and shadowy organizational structures. "That's what we're trying to figure out. It's a network, Rourke. Highly sophisticated. They're leaving no trace, no signatures. We found subtle patterns in the disappearances, a methodology that points to incredibly high-level training and resources. This isn't a rogue agent. This is a coordinated, professional operation. He gestured to a series of connected boxes on the screen, labeled with vague, almost generic names. Corporate interests, rogue intelligence factions, perhaps even elements within our own government, twisting the knife. The unit was designed to handle threats that were too sensitive, too politically volatile for conventional forces. We stepped on a lot of toes, Lena, made powerful enemies who wouldn't forget. He paused, turning to face her fully, his expression grim. The fact that they knew about you, about your particular mark, that means their intelligence runs deep, very deep. They've been patient, waiting. And now they're moving. They're consolidating their power by eliminating anyone who could expose them, anyone who knows their secrets, anyone who could stand in their way, anyone from Echo Vortex. The weight of his words settled in the room, heavy and undeniable. Lena felt the familiar stirrings of adrenaline, the cold, analytical part of her brain clicking into gear. The years of suppressing her true self, of dulling her senses, were beginning to peel away. The mechanic was fading, the operative re-emerging. The mockers, Private Calhoun and his ilk, were simply pawns in a much larger, darker game. They had exposed her not just to ridicule, but to a silent, deadly hunt. The tattoo, once her hidden shame, her indelible link to a past she wished to forget, was now a blatant beacon. It was a summons to a war she thought she had escaped, and a target on her back she could no longer ignore. She looked at Ward, her eyes now mirroring the piercing focus of the eagle, the shared secret of their tattoos, the unspoken bond of having faced death together, and now the chilling reality of being hunted. It forged an instantaneous connection, bypassing years of separation, the revelation of saving his life. A secret she had guarded fiercely now felt like a missing piece of a much larger puzzle, a forgotten promise finally brought to light. The ghosts of Echo Vortex were not merely memories, they were present dangers, and their haunting presence demanded action. The cafeteria at Fort Daxton was a microcosm of base life, a sprawling, echoing space where the rank and file mingled, albeit separated by unspoken lines of authority and experience. The air hummed with the clatter of trays, the murmur of hundreds of conversations, the rhythmic thud of boots on linoleum. Fluorescent lights, unforgiving and stark, cast a pale glow over the tables, each one a temporary island in a sea of activity. For Lena Rourke, it was a necessary evil, a place to refuel before returning to the familiar solace of her wrench and the intricate dance of machinery. She chose a table tucked away in a corner, as she always did, a habit born of years spent cultivating invisibility. A simple utilitarian meal, a bland meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and uninspired green beans, lay before her, largely untouched. Her mind, rather than her stomach, was full. The revelation in Colonel Ward's secure briefing room had been a seismic shock. Echo Vortex was reactivating. Her past, the life she had so painstakingly buried under layers of grease and anonymity, was now violently resurrected. The understanding that someone was hunting them, her brothers and sisters in arms, the last remnants of a ghost unit, settled deep in her bones, a cold, unwavering certainty. The faded eagle eyes tattoo on her forearm, once a source of humiliation in the motor pool, now felt like a brand, a beacon in the darkness, both a summons and a target. It was this latter realization that sharpened her senses, pulling her from the days of memory into the stark present. She ate slowly, deliberately, each mouthful a mechanical act. Her eyes, however, were not on her plate. They moved, subtly, ceaselessly, scanning the room. This wasn't a casual glance, it was a trained sweep, a practiced rhythm of observation honed in hostile environments where every face, every gesture, every misplaced shadow could spell life or death. The hum of conversation, the scrape of chairs, the distant clanging from the kitchen, all faded into a dull background thrum, allowing her to focus on the periphery, on the anomalies. Years of counter-surveillance training had ingrained in her the ability to pick out the subtle cues, the tells, the discordant notes in an otherwise harmonious scene. Most people in the cafeteria were identifiable: uniforms, patches, unit insignias, the way they interacted. It all spoke volumes. Soldiers ate with the hurried efficiency of those on a schedule, their conversations often revolving around duty rosters, weekend plans, or complaints about the chow. Civilian contractors, often distinguishable by their less rigid attire and slightly more relaxed demeanor, moved with a different cadence. Lena knew these patterns, had studied them, integrated them into her cover. Then she saw him. He was sitting at a table near one of the large plate glass windows, ostensibly enjoying his meal. He was dressed in civilian clothes, a clean, uncreased polo shirt, dark slacks, and polished loafers. His attire was too clean, too neat for Fort Daxton. Most civilians on base were either contractors in work clothes or family members, dressed casually. This man's clothes looked expensive, almost too perfect for a military cafeteria. But it wasn't just his clothes, it was his posture. Too straight, too strategic. His eyes. They were in constant, almost imperceptible motion, not flitting about like someone casually observing their surroundings, but performing a methodical, practiced sweep of the room. And always, always, they returned to her. A fleeting glance, quickly dismissed, then another, a fraction of a second longer. He wasn't overtly staring, he was observing. He used the reflections in the window to check his blind spots, subtly adjusted his body to keep her in his peripheral vision, even when he appeared to be looking elsewhere. His hands, resting on the table, were still, too still. Most people fidget, tap a finger, hold their fork a certain way. His stillness bespoke a deep ingrained discipline, a readiness to move or react at a moment's notice. Lena's internal alarm bells, long dormant, began to chime softly. This was it. This was what Colonel Ward had warned her about. The watchers, the hunters, they weren't hiding in the shadows of some distant city. They were here, on base, moving with a chilling audacity. She didn't react overtly. Her face remained impassive, her movements calm as she slowly lifted her fork, taking another bite of the unappetizing meatloaf. But internally, her mind was a whirlwind of calculations. She ran through a mental checklist, a rapid-fire sequence of questions, entry points, exits, potential threats, angles of observation. She registered the cafeteria's layout, the placement of the security cameras, often more for show than substance on a base cafeteria, the density of the crowd. He was good, very good. He wasn't overtly threatening, just present. A constant, subtle pressure. She decided on a test. She shifted in her seat, pretending to reach for a napkin, subtly exposing more of her left forearm, where the eagle eyes tattoo resided, to his line of sight. It was a risky move, a deliberate provocation. If he was truly tracking her, if the tattoo was indeed the key, then this subtle reveal would elicit a reaction, however minute. He didn't move a muscle, didn't shift his gaze. But as Lena glanced up through her eyelashes, she caught it, a tiny, almost imperceptible tightening around his eyes, a flicker of something that could have been recognition or confirmation. It was there, then gone. He was disciplined, a professional. Her heart rate, usually a steady, controlled rhythm, picked up a fraction of a beat. This was no ordinary base personnel. This was a trained operative. And he was here for her, or, more accurately, for the ghost of echo vortex that resided within her. She continued her meal, keeping her movements natural, feigning disinterest, but every fiber of her being was now hyper-aware of his presence, a taut wire humming in the quiet tension. She finished her meal, pushed her tray away, and stood up, moving towards the tray return. As she walked, she took a slightly longer route than necessary, deliberately walking through a more crowded section of the cafeteria, then veering towards a less populated corridor leading to the exit. She used the various obstacles, a group of soldiers laughing loudly, a stack of empty chairs, a particularly slow-moving NCO, to break his line of sight, to create micro-gaps in his observation. She reached the exit, pushed open the door, and stepped out into the bright afternoon sun. The heat was a stark contrast to the cool, artificially lit cafeteria. She took a deep breath, and then, without breaking stride, she pivoted sharply, moving into the shadows of a nearby building, pressing herself against the wall. From this vantage point, concealed but with a clear view of the cafeteria entrance, she waited. It took less than 30 seconds. The man in the clean polo shirt emerged from the cafeteria, his eyes already sweeping the immediate area, searching for her. His movements were swift, efficient, confirming his intent to follow. He scanned left, then right, a quick, almost predatory sweep. When he didn't immediately spot her, a barely perceptible flicker of concern, perhaps even frustration, crossed his otherwise composed face. His shoulders tensed. He hesitated for a brief moment, then began to move, adopting a fast, purposeful stride in the direction he assumed she would have taken. Lena remained hidden, watching him disappear around the corner of the building, moving away from her position. Confirmation. He was definitely following. He was definitely observing. And he was definitely trained. The casual mockery of Private Calhoun now felt like a distant, childish squabble compared to the silent, professional threat she had just encountered. She waited a few more seconds, ensuring he was well out of sight, then slipped out of the shadows, moving with an almost preternatural stealth back towards the main administrative building. Her objective: Colonel Ward. She found him in his private office, the secure briefing room where their conversation had taken place earlier. He looked up as she entered, his expression grim, as if he had been expecting her, expecting this. "Rourke," he acknowledged, his voice a low thrum. "What have you got?" Lena wasted no time on pleasantries. Cafeteria, male, civilian dress, mid-30s, well-built, too clean, too precise. Counter-surveillance training extensive. He was observing me. She recounted the details, the strategic seating, the subtle eye movements, the imperceptible tightening around his eyes when she exposed the tattoo, her testing maneuver, his quick pursuit. Every detail was delivered with the precision of a field report. Ward listened, his face hardening with each word. He walked over to a secure terminal on his desk, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "Description!" "Any distinguishing marks, tattoos, scars?" "None visible," Lena replied instantly. "Highly disciplined. Controlled body language." He wasn't looking to engage, just track. Ward nodded slowly, his eyes fixed on the screen as profiles and facial recognition data streamed past. "We've been seeing an increase in unusual civilian traffic on and around various bases, highly compartmentalized." "They're good at blending." He paused, a new set of data popping up on his screen. His jaw tightened. "Son of a bitch! What is it, Colonel?" Lena asked, her voice tight with anticipation. "Your watcher," Ward said, turning the screen slightly so she could see it. It was a facial recognition match, pulled from a network of surveillance feeds that Fort Daxton had quietly established in recent months. A preemptive measure Ward had insisted upon, a gut feeling that something was amiss. The profile was sparse, almost blank, but the face was undeniably the man from the cafeteria. His name, or rather his alias, is Silas. He's been linked to a series of low-level security breaches at other installations. Nothing major on the surface, just probing, information gathering. Then Ward brought up another set of documents. "This confirms it, Rourke. Our covers have been compromised. Completely. Not just your tattoo, not just my name. Detailed profiles, operational histories, even psychological assessments. Everything about Echo Vortex. It's circulating." He pushed a digital file across the screen towards her. "Take a look." Lena leaned closer, her eyes scanning the document. It was a digital dossier, meticulously compiled. Her own profile was chillingly accurate. Lena Rourke, born Eleanor Vance, top of her class in tactical response, expert in demolitions and close-quarters combat. Psychological profile, highly adaptable, low emotional reactivity under pressure, capable of extreme discretion. Even the mention of her quiet, almost solitary nature, her preference for mechanical work as a form of mental disengagement, it was all there. Every buried detail, every forgotten skill. And then, a section detailing her unauthorized extraction of Colonel Silas Ward during Operation Chimera, marked with a high-priority flag. They knew everything. "This level of detail," Lena murmured, her voice flat, devoid of surprise, but filled with a growing sense of grim resolve. "This isn't just a leak. This is an inside job. Someone had direct access to our classified files. Someone who knows the full history of Echo Vortex." "Bingo," Ward confirmed, his voice gravelly. "Someone high up. Or someone who managed to penetrate the deepest levels of our intelligence infrastructure. It's a full-scale information warfare campaign preceding what I can only assume will be a kinetic one. They're validating targets. You just met yours. The realization settled over them like a shroud. The casual mockery in the cafeteria, the wannabe recon symbol jibe, the private's unwitting exposé, it all coalesced into a chilling pattern. It wasn't just a random act of bullying. It was a symptom of a much larger, more insidious threat. The Watchers were not just observing, they were confirming. And the confirmation meant action. The quiet life she had built, the carefully constructed illusion of Lena Rourke, the mechanic, was irrevocably shattered. The ghost unit was stirring, not by choice, but because the hunt had begun. And she, with her faded tattoo and her awakened instincts, was right at the heart of it. The game had begun, whether she liked it or not. The secure briefing room, already a vault of classified secrets, seemed to hum with an intensified energy, a palpable tension born of the revelations that had just unfolded. Colonel Silas Ward, his face a grim tableau of resolve, moved with a controlled urgency, his fingers dancing across the secure terminal's keyboard. The air, cool and recycled, now felt thin, charged with the weight of impending action. The faint, metallic scent that always lingered in the room seemed to sharpen, almost like the tang of ozone before a storm. Lena Rourke stood opposite him, her posture erect, her gaze fixed on the screen where the chilling dossier of her past and the past of Echo Vortex had just been displayed. The casual mockery in the motor pool, the unwitting complicity of Private Calhoun, the quiet menace of the Watcher in the cafeteria, all of it now coalesced into a terrifyingly clear picture. It wasn't random. It was targeted. And it was deeply personal. The years of meticulous cover, the deliberate obscurity, had crumbled in the face of an enemy who knew far more than they should. Ward brought up a new set of documents, their classifications even higher, emblazoned with crimson stamps that screamed eyes only and top secret. Black Initiative. These weren't mere profiles. They were operational directives, intelligence assessments, and threat matrices. He pushed the secure tablet across the table towards Lena, its screen glowing with the stark reality of their situation. "Rourke," Ward began, his voice low and gravelly, "what you saw in your profile, that was just the appetizer. This is the main course." Lena picked up the tablet, her fingers, usually stained with grease, now almost unnaturally clean, moving with practiced ease to scroll through the documents. Each page unveiled a new layer of the conspiracy, a deepening abyss of betrayal and danger. The first document detailed the escalating pattern of disappearances of former Echo Vortex operatives, confirming Ward's earlier holographic map. It wasn't just a few isolated incidents, it was a systematic purge. Names she recognized, faces she had fought alongside, now listed as status, Mia, presumed compromised, neutralized. A cold knot tightened in her stomach. These weren't just data points. These were comrades, members of a unique brotherhood forged in the crucible of impossible missions. The next document was an intelligence brief, detailing the probable origin of the threat. It pointed to a shadowy consortium of rogue intelligence factions, powerful transnational corporations with their own private armies, and disillusioned former government officials, a Hydra-headed entity that sought to reshape global power structures, unhindered by conventional oversight or morality. Echo Vortex, with its deep knowledge of their clandestine activities and its inherent ability to operate outside traditional chains of command, was perceived as a direct and existential threat. They were the loose ends, the inconvenient truths, the ghosts that needed to be permanently laid to rest. This surveillance, Ward explained, his voice flat, devoid of emotion but imbued with a steely certainty, it's part of a coordinated, preemptive strike. They're not just watching, they're cataloging, identifying weaknesses, preparing for kinetic engagement. He paused, his eyes meeting hers, a silent, weighty question passing between them. They want us gone, all of us, and they are willing to burn anything and anyone to achieve that. Lena continued to scroll, her gaze piercing, absorbing every line, every detail. The documents included intercepted communications, vague but chilling, hinting at asset neutralization protocols and legacy project termination. There were strategic assessments, pinpointing vulnerabilities of Echo Vortex members based on their adopted civilian lives, predictable routines, family contacts, even their preferred coffee shops. Her own quiet life, her safe mechanics routine was laid bare, dissected, analyzed for points of attack. The watcher in the cafeteria had been doing more than observing. He was validating intelligence, confirming the data points in this very file. Then she saw it, a specific order, dated just yesterday, emanating from an unknown, untraceable source, but bearing the highest possible security clearance. It was brief, concise, and utterly unambiguous. Order: operational reactivation of Echo Vortex. Assets to be consolidated. Immediate action protocols engaged. Lena's breath hitched, a faint, almost imperceptible tremor passing through her. This was it. The moment of truth. For years she had lived with the constant gnawing fear that this day might come, that the fragile peace she had built for herself would shatter. She had buried her operational self so deep, convinced herself that Eleanor Vance, the operative, was dead, replaced entirely by Lena Rourke, the mechanic. But the past, it seemed, was not content to remain buried. It demanded to be exhumed. She looked up from the tablet, her eyes, once clouded with the quiet resignation of the mechanic, now sharp, clear, and intensely focused, mirroring the predatory gaze of the eagle tattoo on her arm. There was no hesitation in them, no fear, no regret, only a deep, resonant understanding. "Orders have been issued," Ward confirmed, his voice barely above a whisper, yet resonating with immense gravity. "Echo Vortex is being quietly reactivated, a ghost unit brought back from the grave for this." He swept a hand over the holographic map where the red dots of missing operatives flickered ominously, to hunt them, to stop them, to save what's left of us, and perhaps to save the world from what they represent. Lena's mind, which had been in a constant state of dual processing, the mundane tasks of the mechanic versus the suppressed instincts of the operative, suddenly shifted, aligning into a singular, laser-sharp focus. The internal conflict that had been a silent companion for years vanished. It was a clarity born of absolute necessity, of profound purpose. The quiet life, the anonymity, the illusion of safety, they were gone. They had always been tenuous, a borrowed respite. She remembered the mocking laughter in the motor pool, the scorn directed at her faded tattoo. They had seen it as a mark of shame, a poorly executed symbol of a forgotten dream. They had seen Lena Rourke, the quiet, unremarkable mechanic. But they had been wrong. Terribly, spectacularly wrong. The eagle eyes weren't shame. They were never shame. They were always a summons, a silent, unwavering call to duty, a compass guiding her back to the core of who she truly was. They were an indelible reminder of her oath, of the skills she possessed, of the battles she had fought and the ones she was yet to fight. They were the brand of a warrior, waiting for the signal to re-engage. Without a moment of hesitation, without a single word of protest or a backward glance at the life she was leaving behind, Lena returned the tablet to Ward. Her acceptance was absolute, unyielding. It was etched not just in her expression, but in the subtle shift of her posture, the tightening of her shoulders, the newfound steel in her gaze. The decision was not made. It had simply always been there, waiting for the trigger. The universe, in its own brutal way, had given her back her purpose. "What's the immediate plan, Colonel?" she asked, her voice now crisp, clear, and devoid of the careful neutrality she had cultivated for years. The mechanic's quiet demeanor was gone, replaced by the sharp, decisive tone of a seasoned operative. The transformation was complete, stark, and utterly undeniable. Eleanor Vance, the Phantom Warrior, had been awakened. Ward regarded her, a flicker of profound relief and grim satisfaction in his eyes. He had known she would accept. He had known the moment he saw that faded tattoo on her arm, the moment he had revealed his own. The bond of Echo Vortex was not merely professional, it was fraternal, a deep, unspoken connection forged in fire and shadow. "Good," he said, the single word conveying a volume of unspoken trust and shared understanding. "First, we go dark. Completely. You're already compromised on base. We can't afford any more direct exposure." He gestured towards a discreetly camouflaged door in the corner of the briefing room, a door that blended seamlessly with the wall panels, almost invisible to the untrained eye. "This way. It leads to a secure access point deep under the base. Surveillance-proof, off-grid. It's been prepared for this exact contingency. Our temporary operations center, until we can consolidate assets and formulate a full response." Lena nodded, her eyes already assessing the door, mentally mapping out the potential pathways, the security protocols. Her mind was already racing, analyzing contingencies, anticipating threats, calculating next steps. The years of living a quiet, almost deliberately mundane existence had dulled her, but they hadn't broken her. They had merely kept her sharp, a coiled spring waiting for release. As she moved towards the hidden door, a single clear thought solidified in her mind. The mockery, the whispers, the snide remarks about her tattoo, they were irrelevant. They were the misguided judgments of those who could never comprehend the true weight of the symbols etched on a warrior's skin. The eagle eyes weren't a source of embarrassment. They were a badge of honor, a mark of belonging to a lineage of silent protectors. They were the silent promise she had made to herself and to her fallen comrades that when the time came, she would answer the call. The time had come. The awakening had begun. The hidden door in Colonel Ward's secure briefing room slid open with a whisper-soft hydraulic sigh, revealing not a sterile corridor, but a descent into deeper shadows. The air that flowed from within was cooler, thicker, carrying a faint metallic tang distinct from the base above. Lena Rourke stepped through the threshold first, her movements deliberate, already shedding the last vestiges of her mechanic's persona with each precise step. The transition was not merely physical, it was an internal recalibration, a profound shift in consciousness. The loud clatter of the motor pool, the hum of fluorescent lights, the petty taunts of Private Calhoun, all of it now felt like a distant, irrelevant dream. This was reality. The passage was a steep, narrow staircase spiraling downwards into an almost total darkness, broken only by strategically placed low-intensity lead strips embedded in the concrete walls. Each step echoed with a muted solidity, guiding them deeper beneath the bedrock of Fort Daxton. This wasn't just a basement, this was a meticulously constructed, highly fortified, sub-level facility designed for operations that existed far beyond the public eye. It was surveillance-proof, electromagnetically shielded, and entirely off-grid. A ghost in the machine of the military base above. As they descended, the ambient noise of the base faded completely, replaced by a profound, almost unsettling quiet. Here, the only sounds were their own footsteps, the rhythmic thrum of unseen ventilation systems, and the distant, almost subliminal hum of highly specialized electronics. It was a silence that spoke of absolute isolation, of secrets protected at all costs. For years, Lena had sought such quiet, such anonymity in her mechanic's life. Now she realized this was the true quiet she craved, the quiet before the storm, the focus before the fight. Colonel Ward followed close behind her, his presence a solid, reassuring anchor in the descending darkness. He didn't speak, knowing that words were unnecessary. Lena was already absorbing her surroundings, her senses sharpening with every meter they dropped beneath the earth. Her mind, once preoccupied with engine schematics, was now effortlessly mapping egress points, identifying choke points, assessing potential threats and defensive positions. The years of conscious suppression, of forcing her analytical, tactical mind into mundane patterns were over. The core of Eleanor Vance, the operative, was finally unleashed. The staircase opened into a short, wide tunnel, dimly lit, leading to another heavy, blast-proof door. This one, unlike the one above, bore no visible locking mechanisms. Ward placed his palm against a concealed scanner. A soft, whirring sound, a series of clicks, and the door swung inward with surprising speed, revealing the heart of the secure facility. The change in atmosphere was immediate and dramatic. Gone was the damp, earthy scent of the tunnel, replaced by the crisp, sterile air of a highly advanced tactical center. This was no ordinary war room. It was a cavernous space, meticulously designed for efficiency and high-stakes operations. A massive, multi-screen display dominated one wall, currently dark but promising a flood of real-time intelligence. Strategically placed workstations, each equipped with multiple monitors and high-speed terminals, were arranged in concentric arcs. Communication consoles, secure comms arrays, and holographic projectors stood ready. The equipment was state-of-the-art, bleeding-edge technology that few outside the highest echelons of black operations even knew existed. As Lena stepped into the tactical war room, the persona of the mechanic fell away, completely and irrevocably. It wasn't a conscious effort, it was an organic, almost physical transformation. The slight slump of her shoulders, a habitual posture adopted to appear less imposing, straightened. Her gaze, which had often been downcast or deliberately unfocused in public, now snapped up, sharp and scanning, taking in every detail of the room in a single comprehensive sweep. Her movements, once deliberately muted and unhurried, became crisper, infused with a coiled energy that spoke of readiness. The grease and oil that still faintly clung to her skin, the faded uniform she still wore, felt like a foreign skin, a costume to be shed. The operative reawakened. It was more than just a change in demeanor. It was a shift in her very being. The constant low-level hum of anxiety that had accompanied her years of masquerade vanished, replaced by a profound sense of purpose, of being exactly where she was meant to be. The mental fog that had subtly dulled her instincts, the deliberate effort to slow her reactions and blunt her perceptions, lifted entirely. Her mind raced with a clarity she hadn't experienced in years, processing data, identifying patterns, and anticipating scenarios with chilling speed. She felt for the first time in a long time truly, absolutely alive. Ward watched her, a faint, almost imperceptible nod of approval. He had seen this transformation before, in the crucible of combat, in the faces of soldiers pushed beyond their limits and finding their true selves. He understood the profound gravity of what Lena was experiencing. This wasn't just a mission, it was a homecoming. "This is it, Rourke." Ward's voice cut through the hum of the silent room, a stark, authoritative sound. "Our new command center. Undetectable. Untraceable. Our last stand." He moved to the central holographic projector, his movements purposeful. "We've already initiated the preliminary protocols. Satellite feeds are being rerouted, secure channels established, deep cover assets being activated. We're running a skeletal crew right now, just the core, until we can verify the loyalty and safety of other Echo Vortex members. You and I, we're the first." Lena walked to one of the workstations, her fingers brushing the cool, smooth surface of the console. The familiarity of the tactical setup, the faint scent of electronics and ozone, brought a wave of memories flooding back. Memories of clandestine ops, of high-stakes missions, of the unique, uncompromising world of Echo Vortex. She glanced down at her left forearm, tracing the faded outline of the eagle eyes tattoo. The lines, once a symbol of ridicule, now felt like a direct link to her true self, a compass that had always pointed her back to this path, this purpose. "What's our first contact plan?" Lena asked, her voice steady, precise, the timbre of a commander, not a mechanic. Her words were economical, every syllable imbued with intent. Ward activated the main display. The massive screen flickered to life, displaying a complex three-dimensional topographical map of a heavily forested, mountainous region in Eastern Europe. Red markers indicating known hostile positions pulsed ominously. Blue markers, fewer in number, represented potential friendly or neutral assets. Our intelligence confirms that the consortium responsible for targeting Echo Vortex members has established a forward operating base here, Ward explained, his voice devoid of emotion, purely analytical. It's a black site, deep within a contested territory. They're using it as a data hub, consolidating the information they've gathered on us and coordinating the eliminations. He zoomed in on a specific structure, a camouflaged bunker embedded deep within the mountain. Our watcher from the cafeteria, Silas, he's confirmed to be a high-ranking operative within their intelligence arm. We believe he's at this location, overseeing the data acquisition and target validation. Lena's eyes narrowed, her gaze fixed on the bunker. Silas. The man who had been watching her, who had confirmed her cover was blown. The target suddenly had a face, a human element that made the abstract threat brutally concrete. The objective, Ward continued, is reconnaissance and data extraction. We need to confirm their full operational capability, identify key personnel, and most importantly, copy every scrap of intelligence they have on Echo Vortex. We need to know who they are, who they're working with, and exactly how deep this goes. And if possible, apprehend Silas. He's a walking hard drive of their operations. Infiltration, not assault, Lena deduced, her mind already working through scenarios. Minimal footprint, surgical strike. We need the data more than we need to burn the site. Precisely, Ward confirmed, a hint of grim satisfaction in his tone. This isn't about vengeance, not yet. This is about intelligence, about protecting the remaining assets, and about understanding the scope of the threat. He looked at her, his eyes serious. You're the best at this, Rourke. Infiltration, exfiltration, data recovery. You were legendary in Echo Vortex for your ability to ghost through enemy lines. Lena felt a surge of cold confidence, a familiar thrill that had been buried for too long. The praise felt alien after years of being overlooked, but it also felt profoundly right. This was what she was built for. This was her true north. Ward activated a smaller screen, displaying satellite imagery and tactical overlays. We have a window of opportunity in 72 hours. A meteorological anomaly will create a brief, localized storm front, providing atmospheric cover. We'll deploy by halo jump, solo infiltration. You'll be airdropped 10 clicks out under cover of darkness. As Ward continued his briefing detailing insertion points, communication protocols, extraction plans, and contingency scenarios, Lena listened with an intensity that bordered on the absolute. Her mind was a finely tuned instrument, absorbing every detail, dissecting every variable, already constructing a mental blueprint of the mission. The technical jargon, the tactical terms, the high-stakes calculations, they flowed through her with an innate understanding, as natural as breathing. She could feel the adrenaline building, a cold, sharp edge of anticipation. The weariness that had settled in her bones from years of pretending to be someone else was gone, replaced by a vibrant electric energy. The aches and pains of repetitive mechanical work seemed to vanish, her body responding to the renewed demands of its true calling. Every muscle felt primed, every nerve ending alert. She glanced down at her arm again, her thumb absently tracing the outline of the eagle eyes tattoo. It had always been a part of her, a silent witness to her true identity, a constant reminder of the life she had once led, the world she belonged to. For years, she had viewed it as a burden, a mark that tied her to a past she desperately wanted to escape. It had been mocked, ridiculed, a symbol of her civilian cover's perceived inadequacy. But now, in this secure underground sanctuary, surrounded by the promise of true purpose, it felt different. It wasn't a burden anymore. It was a badge. It was a compass. It had always pointed her back to this room, to this mission, to the soldier she truly was. The mechanic was dead. Eleanor Vance, the Echo Vortex operative, was awake, and she was ready to hunt the ghosts that dared to hunt her own. The game had truly begun. And so the quiet mechanic, once mocked and dismissed, sheds her disguise. Lena Rourke, the unassuming face of everyday duty, is no more. In her place, Eleanor Vance, the seasoned operative, stands reawakened, ready to confront the shadows that dare to disturb the slumber of a ghost unit. The faded tattoo, once a mark of ridicule, has transformed into a beacon, a compass pointing her back to a life she thought she had left behind, a life of purpose, of danger, and of profound, silent sacrifice. This story, born from a simple act of mockery, has unveiled layers of buried history, secret units, and the chilling reality of a world where hidden enemies move with silent precision. We've witnessed the transformation, the revelation, and the profound weight of a past that refuses to stay buried. The echoes of Echo Vortex are not just whispers from history, they are a present danger, a summons to battle, and a testament to the unwavering spirit of those who serve in the deepest, most unseen corners of conflict. What does it truly mean to carry such a burden? To live a life of manufactured anonymity, knowing that at any moment the fragile piece you've built could shatter, revealing the warrior beneath? Lena's journey reminds us that true strength often lies hidden, disguised by humility, waiting for the moment when its unique power is desperately needed. It's a testament to the unbreakable bond forged in the crucible of elite service. A bond that transcends official decommissioning, fear, or even the threat of utter eradication. When the world is in peril, it is often these very ghosts, these quiet guardians, who are called upon to rise once more. Their tattoos are not just ink on skin, they are a promise, a covenant, a permanent reminder of who they are, what they've done, and what they are still willing to do. The reactivation of Echo Vortex isn't just a plot point in our story, it's a profound reflection on the enduring nature of duty, the cost of secrecy, and the relentless pursuit of justice in a world riddled with unseen threats. Lena's journey from mockery to mission is a powerful reminder that heroes aren't always found on pedestals. Sometimes they're found under a Humvee, quietly saving lives, waiting for the call to save the world. The scorn she faced, the laughter that followed her, served only to underscore the profound ignorance of those who couldn't see past the surface, who couldn't comprehend the immense weight of the past she carried, or the lethal capabilities she possessed. Their derision was a testament to her perfect cover, a cruel irony that now serves as the very catalyst for her return. Here at Veteran Biker, we believe in telling stories that resonate, that reveal the hidden depths of human courage and resilience. Stories that make you think, that make you question, and that ultimately inspire. Lena's tale is a perfect embodiment of that spirit, a journey from the mundane to the extraordinary, from the overlooked to the indispensable. It's a story about finding your true self, even when that self demands immense sacrifice. What were your thoughts on Lena's awakening? What surprised you most about the revelation of Echo Vortex? And what do you think awaits her and Colonel Ward as they embark on this dangerous new mission? Share your insights and theories in the comments below. Your engagement fuels our passion for these narratives, and we love hearing your perspectives. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of hidden operatives and secret units, please give this video a like. Your support helps us bring more incredible narratives to life. And for more thrilling content, be sure to check out our other videos appearing on your screen right now. Until next time, ride safe and remember, some stories are best told in the shadows. Don't forget to subscribe to Veteran Biker.